Well, hundreds of people rallied outside of Mayor John Tory's home today to protest the city's decision to apply for a court injunction against a carpenter who has been building wooden shelters for the homeless. Now, protesters were demanding the application be dropped. A cardboard cutout of Mayor John Tory covered in notices.
We're serving him. The people are serving John Tory.
The message from the protesters is clear.
Stop the injunction, repeal the bylaws that criminalize people who are living in parks, and create more affordable RGI housing.
The application for the injunction was filed in Ontario Superior Court against Khalil Sevrite earlier this month. Sevrite has been building tiny wooden homes for the homeless as a temporary solution to help with the city's homeless crisis. The city says it considers the wooden structures unsafe.
The city can and will not provide housing options that actually work for people. And so the tiny shelters have given people a sense of warmth and safety this winter. They've given people a sense of autonomy.
The city says it has a duty to keep public spaces, including parks, safe and open for all residents. Toronto Fire says there are significant safety risks to those who live there and the neighborhood at large.
Whether it's wooden structures or tents or foam pods, that activity is inherently dangerous.
Toronto Fire says in 2020, officials responded to 253 fires in encampments, a 250% increase over the same period in 2019. So far this year, there have been 28 fires in encampments, one of them fatal. Toronto Fire Chief Jim Jessup says it's not so much the structure itself that poses a risk.
Is the contents you put inside these structures, sleeping bags, other materials, and quite often open flame, whether it's cooking or other types of activities. And then it's the actual human activity when you get into one of these structures.
Jessup says fire officials are trying to ensure these encampments are as safe as they can be through education and by having pre-planned fire routes.
We get questions all the time. Well, why don't we provide smoke alarms and they can put smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms? It's very important to know that those devices operate under very regulated conditions, and they're not intended to function in extreme cold, and they're not intended to function in high humidity.
But for those dealing with overcrowding in shelters and with nowhere to go, unsafe or not, advocates say these tiny shelters are all they have until the city deals with Toronto's lack of affordable housing.
We need more permanent housing. The city needs to listen to people living in encampments about what they want. But that hasn't happened, and until that happens, the tiny shelters are so important because people are going to freeze to death outside without these.
The city wants to restrain Sevrite from placing the structures on city-owned land, saying it is against bylaws. A hearing date for the injunction has not been set.